Hello everyone. Welcome to lecture 6.1, Music and the Psychology of Expectation. This module is dedicated to Professor David Huron, who is a well-known music psychologist who made major contributions to cognitive musicology. And he just passed away in June 2025. And in this module, we will read through the first two chapters of one of his most influential books, Sweet Anticipation, Music and the Psychology of Expectation. So this book is deeply rooted in Leonard Mayer's work, his seminal book, Emotion and Meaning in Music. So this book argued that the principal emotional content of music arises through the composer's choreography of expectation. As we already introduced the core ideas in Mayer's book in our last lecture, the arguments here should sound familiar to you. Mayer noted that composers sometimes thwart our expectations, sometimes delay an expected outcome, and sometimes simply give us what we expect. This relates to musical suspense, and the delay of gratification, and also the fulfillment of expectations. Mayer suggested that although music does contain representational elements, the principal source for music's emotive power lies in the realm of expectation. This research provides an opportunity to revisit Mayer's topic and to recast the discussion in light of contemporary psychological findings to form a comprehensive theory of expectation. So, by the time Mayer developed his theory in 1961, the psychological researches at that time was pretty lagged out. So the discussions formed by Mayer is mostly theoretical or philosophical. Later on, through the nearly 30-40 years of development of psychological researches, now in light of contemporary psychological findings, we are able to form a more comprehensive theory based on Mayer's ideas of expectation and give deeper and more scientific illustrations for the ideas for the theory of expectation. So the theory proposed by David Huron is called ITPRA theory. So Huron proposed that any theory of musical expectation necessarily presupposes a general theory of expectation. And this ITPRA theory is intended to provide such a general theory. So the goal here is to develop a general theory that deals with the general kinds of expectations, but not only limited within the musical studies. The ability to anticipate future events is important for survival. Our minds are wired for expectation. Neuroscientists have identified several brain structures that appear to be essential for prediction and anticipation. These include the substantia nigra, the ventral tegmental area, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the lateral prefrontal cortical areas. So this mechanism of expectation is a kind of adaptive evolution of our human of humankind. And because this ability of anticipation or expectation is linked to the our survival, and our brain allocated specialized functions and areas to deal with this function of of anticipation. So it turned out that this kind of ability is innate in human nature, and it's very much relevant to our survival. It's proposed that the emotions evoked by expectation involve 5 functionally distinct psychological systems: imagination, tension, prediction, reaction, and appraisal. The first, the initial of the 5 words constitutes this ITPRA theory. Furthermore, we categorize these 5 responses into 2 types of responses: the pre-outcome response and the post-outcome responses. The pre-outcome responses refers to the feelings that occur prior to an expected or unexpected event, which includes imagination response and attention response. The post-outcome responses refer to feelings that occur after an expected or unexpected event, which includes prediction response, reaction response, and appraisal response. So let's look into what are these responses. First, what is imagination response? Imagining an outcome allows us to feel some vicarious pleasure or displeasure, as though that outcome has already happened. This imagination response is one of the principal mechanisms in behavioral motivation. Through the simple act of daydreaming, it is possible to make future outcomes emotionally palpable. In turn, these feelings motivate changes in behavior that can increase the likelihood of a future favorable result. So this imagined outcome in the future actually in turn motivates us to plan our actions, to make future plans towards this palpable future result. So the imagination response provides the biological foundation for deferred gratification. Feelings that arise through imagination help individuals to forgo immediate pleasures in order to achieve a greater pleasure later on. So this imagination response, or the ability to imagine the future, actually provides us a goal-oriented kind of action plan. So because we have this ability to look into the future, so we can make our plans, make our to set up a trajectory towards that goal or outcome, instead of focusing on this immediate pleasure at present. So this is the argument about imagination response. Next, tension response. Preparing for an expected event typically involves both motor preparation and perceptual preparation, called arousal and attention. The goal is to match arousal and attention to the expected outcome and to synchronize the appropriate arousal and attention levels so that they are reached just in time for the onset of the event. Usually, events require some increase in arousal. The physiological changes characteristic of high arousal are also those associated with stress. So not all high arousal is stressful. Positively balanced emotions such as joy and exuberance will evoke high arousal with little stress. But anticipating negative events is sure to be stressful. In dangerous situations, organisms respond with one of three classic behaviors, known as fighting, fleeing, or freezing. So this is the typical fight or flight response when we face dangerous situations. So more about the timing of tension response. The tension response is linked to the period immediately prior to the anticipated moment of outcome. As the arousal and attention levels move toward an optimum level in anticipation of the outcome, the physiological changes, physiological changes themselves evoke characteristic feeling states. Next, prediction response. So now we're moving from the pre-outcome responses towards post-outcome responses. Once some event occurs, there ensues a convoluted sequence of physiological and psychological changes. It is useful to distinguish three post-outcome responses. So organisms respond better to expected events than unexpected events. Accurate predictions help an organism to prepare to exploit opportunities and circumvent dangers. This is the effect of the prediction or expectations. When a stimulus is expected, appropriate motor responses are initiated more rapidly and more accurately. So this talks about why we are forming the expectations and why our brains are wired towards accurate predictions. So in addition, a stimulus is more accurately perceived when it is predictable. Since accurate predictions are of real benefit to an organism, it would be reasonable for psychological rewards and punishments to arise in response solely to the accuracy of the expectation. So, our brain is wired towards accurate expectations, and because the benefits the predictions provide to our survival age, therefore the rewards and punishments mechanism arise in response to this evolutionary age of accurate predictions. When the stimulus is expected, the emotional response is positively balanced. When the stimulus is unexpected, the emotional response is negatively balanced. Confirmation of expected outcomes generally induces a positive emotional response, even when the expected outcome is bad. So, for example, on a snow day, I'm going out and I predict or I anticipate that I will fall over. Then, when I walk on the road, I indeed fall over. Although I would feel unpleasant about this result. But in the meantime, I still feel sort of confirmation or satisfaction because I predicted this situation correctly, which means I foresaw the future, which actually gives the positively balanced prediction response. The final two types of responses are reaction and appraisal responses. The most obvious emotions in the post-outcome epoch are those that pertain to the pleasantness or unpleasantness of the outcome itself. Once an outcome is known, our emotions reflect some sort of assessment of the new state. So our post-outcome responses are not only about the accuracy of predictions, but also about the quality of the outcome itself. And when a particular outcome happens, we tend to assess the new state. There are two types of responses to the advent of events. The first is a fast response, also named a reaction response. It is a quick and dirty assessment of the situation followed by an immediate somatic response. So this quick and dirty assessment provides a pretty fast response of the outcome. The next, there is also a slow response named as appraisal response. It refers to a more thoughtful assessment of the situation, a response that takes into account complex social and environmental factors. In terms of reaction response, there are three features. First, the response has a fast onset. Typically, the onset of the response begins less than 150 milliseconds following the onset of the outcome. Although the onset of the response is fast, the somatic changes arising from the response might continue for several seconds afterward. So this reaction, so the onset of this response, the reaction to the stimulus is pretty quick. It's within 150 milliseconds, and it is a quick and dirty assessment. Second, the response is not mediated by consciousness. So no conscious thought or rumination is involved. Some reaction responses can even occur when we are sleeping. Third, the response is defensive or protective in function, which means the reaction assumes a worst-case scenario and responds accordingly. So more details about appraisal response. Our initial reactions to events are susceptible to revision or augmentation. What we find initially exciting or startling in reaction response may be completely transformed by further thought in appraisal response. The reaction response is quick and unconscious. Once conscious thought is engaged, the assessment of a situation is the province of the appraisal response. Appraisal responses can involve conscious thought that often draws complex social and contextual factors. By contrast, the reaction response involves no conscious thought. So there is this difference. So appraisal response is the slow response, and And the reaction response and the appraisal response are independent and need not be consistent with each other. So it means that there is no predetermined relation between the reaction and appraisal responses. So the appraisal response might reinforce the reaction response if they coincide with each other, or it may contrast the reaction response if we find out that the real situation is actually totally different from our first impression. Okay, so this is everything. This is a first introduction to this ITPRA theory proposed by David Huron. In our next lecture, we will look more into the properties of this theory and talk about musical surprise.